My apologies for the late start. Our technology is not made to switch quickly from one service to the next without a coffee hour in between. So we are streaming this meeting live to anybody who's at home and wants to at least listen, but will still not be able to vote. There's no absentee voting today. But I do first welcome everyone who's here. My name is Mark Jensen. For those of you who don't know me, I have the honor of serving as your council president this year. Again, welcome. I've really been looking forward to our time here. We have a very full agenda, so we need to get rolling. But let me first recognize Mr. Brian Brett Rathbone from Zerberg Architects, and also Dan Kleitz from Gertz Construction. So thank you for being here today. And they're of course here to answer questions that may come up later on. I also want to recognize Pastor Larry Woolraby, who will be serving as our parliamentarian. So, hang on. There we go. So you see our agenda, and next on the agenda, I'd like to call up Pastor Matt to lead us in an opening prayer.
Sure, Mark gets hoots and hollers and applause, right? Here we are. Oh, thank you very much. All right. How about hoots and hollers for the Lord? The Lord be with you. Let us pray. Lord God, we invite your presence to be among us today. We are gathered as Trinity Lutheran Church and asking for your guidance, for your wisdom, and for your spirit of joy. We ask that you would be with us and guide our decision-making, our discernment, and our collective sense of mission to be a light into downtown Moorhead and beyond. Remind us of our purpose and our call together. Remind us that we are bathed in the promises of our baptisms and that we have the promise that comes through the cross of Jesus Christ, the promise of forgiveness, the promise of hope and joy, the promise of mercy and new life in him. In Jesus' name, amen.
So again, you see the agenda that we have. Of course, our purpose here is to vote on whether we will be moving forward with our building campaign. But first, I think it's important that we look at how we got here. So, you might remember back early in Pastor Simon's time here at Trinity, we started with the 2020 Vision Team, ultimately with a report coming out in 2016. And you see up here on the screen the recommendations from that Vision Team to create a culture of authentic hospitality, to develop a more effective operational structure, to improve and enhance uses of technology, and then in bold, of course, to improve and enhance our facility. This then led to the formation of 4 dream teams: hospitality, operations, technology, and then of course our facility dream team. And I know that many of the members of all of these teams are here today. The facility dream team then went on to make recommendations based on what they determined to be the 5 constraints to ministry. Those 5 constraints being deferred maintenance, addressing total facility security, better utilizing our existing spaces, improving circulation of people through the building, and then having a central gathering and fellowship space for us to meet and congregate. Specific recommendations included create a building committee, which we did. Prepare a request for qualifications for architectural and design team, which we did. And define the extent of future ministries and mission at Trinity, which we did and continue to do. I mentioned the deferred maintenance costs. So in 2018, there was an estimate done of the cost of those deferred maintenance categories, which you see in front of you, coming to a grand total in 2018 of $7.9 million. And again, this was not to build anything new. This was just to fix what we currently have. Moving forward with our timeline, it became clear in 2018 that we needed focus. We needed to define who and what Trinity Lutheran Church is moving into this new phase of our life together. And that's where our missional narrative came from, the narrative that we stick to so wholeheartedly today, the mission that I bring up all the time in saying that this building campaign is not about a building, but it truly is about living out this mission of how do we become a light shining from this place into downtown Moorhead and beyond. This then led, of course, to the formation of our capital campaign team and then the formal launch of the campaign in September of 2019. And then, of course, COVID slowed things down. We needed a restart. And just this past February, there was a congregational resolution to move forward then with the design process. I have mentioned so much work that has involved so many volunteers, many of whom, again, are in this room. This is just a starting list of, you see here, the 2020 Vision Team. We have the Hospitality, Operations, and Facilities Dream Teams and Technology Dream Team. We have our Building Committee, our Campaign Development Team, our Campaign Committee, our Narrative Development Team, and then our Assets Team. And that's not all, because then, of course, we have all of these campaign callers as well. So if your name has appeared in any of these categories, even if it didn't, but it should have, could you just please stand up and be recognized right now? Come on, I know you're out there. Again, thank you to all volunteers who've brought us to this point. There's one name I know that appears at least as often as anybody else, and somebody who, this person also served as our council president for the past 3 years, and that's Matt Lyseth. So I can think of nobody better to ask up here now to lead us through the actual project that we have in front of us than Matt. So Matt, if you would please come up. Let's applaud for Matt.
Thank you, Mark. Good morning, everybody. What a beautiful day to get everybody together. It is so nice. I mean, has it been about 20 months since we've actually been able to do this? Maybe it's been 2 years, but this is absolutely fantastic to bring the entire congregation together for a day such as this. And so we're just going to drop through a couple of the phases that we've talked about. And so there's phase 1A, which is our admin wing, the 3 stories right behind you. I just want to get everybody Phase 1B is the 1949 edition. That is the L shape that connects the sanctuary, the CLC, and the 3rd-story building. So everything in between is what we consider 1B. Phase 2 is sanctuary and fellowship hall remodels. Phase 3 is refurbishing the CLC and the kitchen. And Phase 4 are site improvements and landscaping. It's tying the entire outside package together. So let's just walk through some of the beauty shots, and that's always the most fun. So I'm glad Mark let me talk about this stuff. So this is really from 8th Street. So this is part of our conversation that we've had about 8th Street is our front door, and nobody really knows it is. They come in, it's not a welcoming space, it's not the place that really grabs your attention and knows that this is where you're supposed to come in. So the idea behind it, of course, is lots of glass. You can see where it all ties together, clear entrance, and it's really pulling you in. The really cool part about it, as you move to a nighttime piece, and this is probably the most important, as we're doing more and more events at night and we're trying to bring in the community, having the lights on and being a welcoming place for the community. If you drive by right now, the only lights you will see are the golden arches across the street. It's pretty dark on our side of the street, so we can certainly do some more to really drive some people in. And then when you walk into the Commons, and we've been referring to this as the Trinity Commons, it's the common space that's going to connect all 3 parts of the existing building. And it's really, as you can see, the really high volume ceilings, we're really talking about coming into a welcoming space that people feel really good about. As you walked into the CLC today, if you came under the portico, the 9-foot ceiling, kind of dark, is not as welcoming to the number of guests that we want to be bringing into our building at all times. Really strange thing we're going to put here at the front door. It's called a welcome desk, and it's going to be at the one entrance to the building. It's not going to be in the middle of the building, so if you come in this entrance at the CLC, you're going to go 15 steps, you're going to take a right, go up 18 steps, you're going to take a left, It's 42 steps until you hit the ramp, and then you're going to take a hard right, and you'll get to the Welcoming Center. And nothing says welcome to an organization like a good exercise program before you come in. So we think this might be a pretty good idea. And then lots of open spaces, and you can see this is the back of the sanctuary, and we'll get some more pictures to really show how we tie in the two different buildings. So again, just off to the left a little bit, and you can see up above in the new space, this is where the church offices are going to be. So we have the offices there. It's not a great angle, but right here, there is a huge opening that takes us right to the back of the CLC. So as you come in, you're going to come into this great opening space, and there's going to be this huge volume space that's going to pull you back into the CLC. So it's a really, again, easy to navigate. Back here, there's stairs, and we'll get some tighter pictures. That's the sanctuary level, so that'll draw you right back to the sanctuary. And it's hard to see, but here is the central elevator for everything in the building. One elevator will get you everywhere. Yeah, just crazy, of all things, to have one spot. Here is what is the overflow for the sanctuary. So the chapel gets shortened up to make it kind of match the upside. And these are the stained glass windows in the chapel right now that face into the courtyard. And so those will be reused. The same limestone that wraps them today stays in there, so it's a really nice piece. Natural light is going to come in from the commons area. Light from the sanctuary will come out. And you can see here in just a little sliver, this is the exterior of the sanctuary that is in the courtyard right now. That's exposed. So that continues to have that exterior look. Just up a little bit, so this is about halfway. You can see this young man is going to the CLC service, but we have a coffee bar out here. And so this is really about the commons area, it's about that common place for everybody to come together, whether it's for a coffee hour, it's for cookies and punch after a high school choir that uses the sanctuary, for orchestra concerts. This is that main gathering space that people can come to. I keep hearing, and I don't want to offend anybody, but I hear we're going to have good coffee there. So I don't know what that means, but so I think we're going to have some, but it's just going to be a lot more open space for it. I believe that we've always had plans that our youth would actually run that, and that would actually be a great fundraiser for them to continue their programs, to be able to do that. And again, here's our stairway that's going up to the sanctuary level. And here is a view back, and I'm going to see, I missed one little spot here. So this up here is actually a bridge. So one of the nice things that we found is the second level of the admin wing right behind us is only off by about a foot in height. And so we're actually going to build a bridge from the second floor all the way into the choir room. And so our choir loft, which has never been handicap accessible, and frankly, if you've tried to lift something up around those stairs before, it's not real easy. This will make the accessibility a lot easier and make that choir loft much more usable for Trinity in the future. And so this is a view from that bridge up above, and you can, again, you see the volume of the space that we have. Again, this is the backside of the overflow on the right side if you're in the sanctuary. And then this is more up to the front of, again, we're looking towards 8th Street. I don't know where these buildings are. Brian, I think you might be remodeling the whole 8th Street, but imagine this is McDonald's right here. We'll get some sandwiches here at Herbs, and everything will be good. But you can, again, you see when we're inside the space, separate gathering spaces, tables, chairs, places for people to gather and use the space for more than just Sunday. So it really gives us a great view of the sunshine. And then just a little bit of a review on our 3-story piece. And so this is 1A. This is that first step of getting our early education reset. So first floor is sanctuary level. So first floor is sanctuary level. And so this would be the entrance to the church. So this is what's connected back towards the sanctuary. This is where the window is that is facing out on, see if I can remember my streets, that would be 3rd Street on the south side of the church. And so what really happens is an opening up of the space. and recreating the preschool and early education. The big addition, which is a huge community need for Moorhead, is the infant care area. We do not serve infants right now, and that is really one of the biggest points of differentiation, not only for the Trinity preschool, but parents are in desperate need of getting kids into preschool at the infant age. This is keeping them out of the workforce. And if anybody's hiring right now, you know how important it is to get people into the workforce. And the rest of it is very standard, but the biggest difference is we are at code. The preschool we have today has been grandfathered in for 50 years, and so the state of Minnesota, from a building perspective, we should have larger rooms, we should have this, we should have that. We're allowed to do it. It's still safe for the kids, but it's not where we should be. Second floor, so this is the upstairs piece, and so for those, this is the current youth room, but that is going to have some walls removed and expanded. Good news, we always need more space for our youth room. What a great problem to have for a church, that we still want to, that teenagers and young people want to gather here. And then we open up more space. Again, more space, it's more flexible space. We can use these rooms for everything more. And we do call it a youth room, but that doesn't mean it's just for youth. It's for everybody in there. We're going to be sharing spaces along the way. And then it connects back into the second floor, and this is where the church offices will one day get broken out. Basement, lower level, this is where we have our choir rooms right now. But again, choir rooms that have steps in them can be used for one thing, which is a choir room. And it gets used one day a week. And so we want to have the space to be able to do everything. It's a both and type of situation. So what we do is remove the steps that are in there and create these giant rooms, which is what we have designed in the basement already. These are great multi-purpose rooms that can still do choir. They can still do preschool. They can still do young education. They can still do all of the things that we have talked about needing the space to do. And then even creating, this is where a couple of the music, I think all the music is held down there, isn't there, in the dungeon down there somewhere? And so these get broken out. They have windows, and so more multi-purpose spaces for the kids to use, for our preschool, for our young adult education. So really exciting stuff that's inside of there. And then I think I'm going to turn it over to Mark to talk about the numbers.
Thanks so much, Matt. Really appreciate that. So these are the numbers that we saw a year ago for what this is going to cost. And for the focus of our meeting today, as you know, we've really been focused on phases 1A and 1B. Again, 1A being the preschool renovation, and phase 1B being the raising of the 1949 edition, and then constructing the beautiful Trinity Commons. And 1 year ago, the estimate for this price was $8.6 million. And then, of course, we see the estimates on the rest of the phases as well that would be handled down the road. Well, again, then remember that what has happened since August 2020. Of course, all of you are aware, I'm sure most of you anyway, are aware of the increase in building costs that has occurred. Shortened supply line chains, long waits for equipment, long waits for building materials, labor shortages, all things COVID related. And when I shared this information with you a week ago, we didn't have updated costs for this, but my thanks to Zerberg and to Gertz for working really, really hard to get us updated numbers that we are now confident in moving forward, so we will make the most informed decision. I did send this out, or I should say we as a church did send this information out to you that you're going to see with the new costs on, I believe it was Friday evening. Some of you would have seen this in an email. We learned a very valuable lesson that oftentimes when you send a mass email in the evening, particularly at I think 11:42 p.m., it oftentimes goes to spam filters. So unfortunately, maybe some of you have not seen this, but here are the numbers that we see that are updated. So this includes a 31% increase in the cost of phase 1A, a 19% increase in the cost of phase 1B, and overall a 25% increase in the cost of phase one as a whole. Now, I should say that these numbers include some other things that maybe are not quite as obvious. So, for instance, there's a $2.8 million difference between the estimate from a year ago and today. About 19% of that, though, is due to increases in the scope of the project, which are actually really exciting and will actually help us for subsequent phases. Another 20% of this cost comes from pieces of projects from later phases that were moved into this one, so that decreases the cost of the later phases as well. Now let's talk about fundraising. So as of now, we have raised $6.9 million. Which is an absolutely astonishing number. We were told by our consultant that we would struggle to raise $2 million. That's why we don't have a consultant anymore. I will also point out that we are in the process of negotiating property sales. And I know there will be a lot of questions about that. There are 3 pieces of property that we are talking about selling. And I know the question will come up, so I'll just be honest with you now and say those 3 properties include the garage to the south, the parking lot to the northwest, and then the Emmaus property. And I know the Emmaus property will cause a lot of ears to perk up when I say that. We have a long 90-year history with Emmaus and a 50-year history with Pathways. They are our partners. They continue to be our partners. We have entered into these negotiations with them in true partnership, and I can't reveal any details of the tentative agreement that we've reached because our council has not yet formally approved their offer, or the offer that we've come to between the 2 organizations. But there's the tentative agreement will give Pathways complete ownership of all 350 acres, and they will be able to live out the vision that they have for Pathways and for camping ministry in the area. Before any kind of a sale of property can take place, we need approval from the congregation. So assuming that our council moves this forward, we'll probably be gathering again in a month to talk about the actual details of this. But I can say that the Pathways board that we've worked with is very, very excited about this, and we're excited to tell you more about it. So you can see then that that brings us to a total of $7.5 million in what we've raised. Now, just a few other things to add. We do have approval for a $2 million loan from the ELCA Mission Investment Fund, and depending upon the timeline of the loan, we have different rates, of course, that you see here. We also have a request to the Trinity Foundation to pay interest during construction, and that request is being considered. The thinking there is that then any pledges that are made, any donations, actually any cash that we receive during construction would go straight to paying principal and not to paying interest. So, still a little sobering that we have this gap, 7.5 million raised versus the 11.5 that we anticipate all of phase 1 costing us. I want to share some really, really exciting news, though, on top of this. Just yesterday, or I should say 2 days ago, sorry, we got a new $500,000 pledge. And this was made when this cost increase was made available to this, was told to this individual, who then stepped up and said, all right, it's time to make my pledge and put this out as a challenge. So any gifts that we get now, starting from today, or any pledges we get from today through the end of 2022 will be matched up to $500,000, so for potential of another $1 million added on to the 7.5. So that's good news. But still, we have this gap that exists between what we want to pay for right now and what we truly can pay for. So, upon getting this information on Thursday evening, the building committee met and made a recommendation, which then we took to the entire church council then on Friday. And we've changed the motion from what we had anticipated bringing forward to you today to this. So the motion that we want to bring forward is to move forward with Phase 1A, just Phase 1A of Trinity's building program, Refocus, Renew, and Refresh. Estimated to cost $5.1 million, and to authorize the church council to establish a loan with the ELCA Mission Investment Fund, mortgaging our property up to an amount of $2 million. Now, there's solid rationale for this. This is something we can do. This puts us down the road that we've always intended to go down. And we can do this without any significant financing. Certainly we're asking for establishment of a loan, but this will be to take care of any cash shortfalls that we might have during construction between what the construction cost is and the pledges that have actually come in. Of course, we're going to be asking for an acceleration of your pledges to come in at the same time to minimize that loan. And then we still would have $2.4 million that we can put, at least $2.4 million, along with the new pledge that we just saw today toward Phase 1B. I think importantly, this addresses our mission first, right? We are looking at investing our first serious dollars from this campaign into community needs. So we are investing into this preschool and something that our community is asking for and something that we can provide. It's not as glamorous as what I think we're all excited about in the Trinity Commons, but it says very clearly that this is what we believe in. And we are a church that is reaching out to be a light into downtown Moorhead and beyond, starting with our dedication to the youth of this community. Phase 1A is also self-contained, so there's little impact on the use of this building, both during construction and after construction. And I mentioned this a little bit before, but of course, there's been some more deferred maintenance now moved into Phase 1A, addressing immediate needs and lowering costs of subsequent phases. For instance, exactly 1/3 of the cost of Phase 1A, which would be $1.7 million, is solely toward HVAC. So once that is built, we will have heat for the entire building and all the rest of the phases to come. So that's exciting. So it's a $5.1 million investment straight up to work on this particular wing, but maybe 25% of that is actually going toward the preschool, and the rest, the 75%, is going toward more infrastructure that will help us with taking care of our deferred maintenance and also building for subsequent phases. And then, of course, we've been told that the number that we saw, because it's so recent as of Thursday night, is a very accurate but also a worst-case scenario number. So we're hopeful that the market will begin to correct itself and we'll start to see building prices come down, which gives us then some time to adjust and to think about now that we are moving forward with the phase that we can afford, then how will we now move forward and pay for what we want to do next? So we're not stopping in any way. Maybe we're going a little bit slower than we had originally anticipated, but the plan hasn't changed. We're moving forward cautiously, but also very faithfully at the same time. So with that, I would ask if there is a motion from the floor. Okay, we have a motion from Matt Lyseth. Do we have a second? Second from Kurt Casper. Okay, the motion is on the table and is now open for debate. We have a microphone up here. Maybe we can move that microphone out if we want to use it. We also have a handheld mic. And Pastor Matt, are you going to be the runner of the mic? So let's make sure he gets to go back and forth several times. Not because he needs the exercise, but I wish I hadn't said that. Okay, so. So, and when you make your comment, please start by stating your name so everybody knows who you are. And of course, under these masks, it's not obvious oftentimes who we all are. So, comments, please. Comments and questions.
Russell Krabanoff. I'd like to know the loan repayment schedule. So thanks, Russell. I mean, the loan repayment schedule. So the terms and the way that I remember them now is that we would just draw money as needed. It is not a $2 million loan, like here's $2 million, start paying interest on it. We would draw the money from that. I think of it more as a line of credit that we would take as the money's needed. We would only be paying interest during the construction phase. And then after that, at least in the terms they gave us, we would then start a 25-year repayment plan.
Hello, my name is Wes Darling. I am a parent here. We have 3 boys. All 3 boys went through the Trinity preschool program. As we are moving forward and being a light in the community, they are active members when they're home. They like to help other people around here as well. They're going to be your adults going forward. They're going to be your elderly later. Please understand this is a very important step. It's the first step to get us to step 1B, to get us to 2, 3, and 4. So please understand this is just the very beginning, but let's make this happen.
Okay. Thanks, Wes.
Eric Parvey. I'm curious how much of the cost from the subsequent phases are pulled into this with the HVAC, and how much closer will be to the original estimate as of August 2020?
Okay. Brian, can I ask you to answer that question?
Thanks. I'm Brian Berg with Zerberg Architects, and I just want to say that what a great turnout for an incredibly strong congregation, and we're convinced this is a great project. We feel really wonderful about the time we've spent with your leadership to prepare the information for you. It's obviously difficult to deal with numbers like this, but you're not alone in dealing with these numbers. We're dealing with this on multiple projects. It's just a very difficult time right now to try and deal with construction costs. But in answer to the question there, we did an analysis of the portions of the project that were brought forward from future phases, and that number's about $550,000. So the biggest portion of that is the parking lot that we moved into the phase 1B, so that when the building addition is completed, you'll have that area out in front of the building completed at the same time, rather than waiting through phase 2 to get to phase 4. Because if you remember the way that was structured, the parking lot and site utilities piece of that project was kind of the last thing that would be done, the way that the phasing was put together before. But I think the building committee felt it was important to have the parking lot done when the building was done. So that was moved forward. The other thing that was moved forward is the mechanical piece that Mark talked about. The heating plant for this building, for the entire building, is included in the first phase. We'll still have to pipe to get over to the old boiler area over in where that equipment is, and the air handling unit over in the sanctuary in a future phase. But we're replacing the entire heating plant for the entire facility here as part of the first phase. And in order to do that, because of the configuration of your building and the fact that you have kind of a split building here between the CLC, the West Wing, and the Sanctuary building, It's important that we had to build a small mechanical room, so there's about 1,000 square feet that would be built at the back end of the courtyard here for a new mechanical room that would house all that heating equipment. And so those are the things that were moved forward into this. The total, in terms of both categories, the things that were moved forward and the things that are mechanical pieces that are being brought forward in order to make the future construction feasible, was about $1 million. So there's about $1 million of those future phases that are brought forward here. So hopefully that answers the question.
Don't go too far away.
Roger Olson is my name. If we do this 1A until we have a 1B, which could be some time, where are the pastor's offices going to be and all the administration offices?
Right.
And then I guess secondly, I'm wondering, do we need to take out this loan when in fact we have pledges in cash to take care of the first part? Can we delay the application for the loan? I suspect that may be advantageous.
Yeah. Yeah, so first question about the office spaces. So thanks to the Salt's Light Group on Thursday night, we moved almost all of the administrative office space from where it used to be over into the yellow building. So the administration, the church offices now are located there. I think that's been in the bulletin. It's been shared for some time. The pastor's offices are now very cozily, if that's a word, located in what Matt referred to as our current welcome area with the glass door. So that will, in my understanding, Pastor Simon can correct me if I'm wrong, but my understanding is that's where the pastor's offices will be then during this construction phase, until we're able to actually build the office areas that we'd seen. And then your other question, Roger, about the loan, I think that we would need to establish that loan. The Mission Investment Fund asks for almost no funds to establish the loan beyond simply what they're required to do by government regulations. But in establishing that loan, we know at least then we would have a pool of money to draw from if we are short on cash at any point during the building process. But then again, understanding that we would, and then we can pay that principal back right away and then not be paying interest on it.
My name is Paul Devery, and I serve as a member of the campaign committee. And that was a privilege because I had a chance to work with many of you and was so pleased and impressed by the response. I want to say I'm going to support this motion. I'll start there. And then I want to share with you a few observations and then a few suggestions. One observation to begin with is that this congregation has momentum. We have thought through in a new way our vision for the future. We've imagined that future. We've talked about being a light in new ways. We have seen new initiatives already, and more are waiting. It's a good time to be part of this membership. A second observation is about fundraising. As you have heard already from Mark, it went better than expected. But the second observation is not as well as we'd hoped. Our goal was 10, we appear to be around 7. So that's one of the realities that I observed. The third reality that we've been brought to terms with today is this project's going to cost more than we thought it was. Considerably more than we thought it was. No surprise, but that's a new reality. And that leads me to a few suggestions. One suggestion I make is that I think we need to reassess our ability to raise funds going forward. As I say, we did well. We raised that $7 million, but what's our potential going forward? I think we've got to assess that with some care. Secondly, I think we need to assess our capacity for debt. We know that our current operating situation is not healthy, and now if we add debt service to that, that's another matter as well. I'm not opposed to debt. I'm just saying I think we have to think through carefully how we manage that, how we afford that. So I'm suggesting that too. Third, I think we ought to, what we've heard today, revisit this project. Will we need other phases in addition to the ones we've identified? Do they need to be structured differently? Do we have to target a different number based on what kind of money we can raise? I think we need to revisit the project. I'm sure we're going to, of necessity. And I'm just encouraging us to do that. And finally, I suggest that here was nation. And I think the whole Light initiative is what excites people. We need to build our membership. I think we build it around that vision. We need to continue expanding these Light initiatives. And my suggestion is that we do all of that. So that's my comment. Thank you.
Thank you, Paul. Matt in the back.
Good morning. I'm Eric Johnson, and I'd just like to speak on behalf of the motion in support of the motion. And I know there's a lot of questions that we have and a lot of concerns and a lot of worries and a lot of excitement. And I just want to reference an apocryphal story about Martin Luther that is the question that was asked of Martin Luther, what would you, the world was going to end tomorrow. And it's not that he really said this, but it's reputed that he did. The world was going to end tomorrow, I would plant a tree. Earlier this summer, Kirsten and I planted 5 trees. So right around, we planted 5 trees. Many of you know, we were living in our but we planted 5 trees. And when we planted those trees, we didn't know what would happen. And when Kirsten joined in that position, we didn't know what was going to happen. But we planted them. She wanted them. And so did I. And there was hope. And there was a dream what those trees would look like and where it would go. I can tell you that of those 5 trees, 2 of them are struggling a little bit. And I'm worried about those trees. And I'm not sure what's going to happen with those trees. As you know, I think many of you know, Kirsten died 2 months ago. And so she is going to see those trees grow in a different way, and she's going to live the anxiety about those other 2 trees in a different way. And I bring this up today in this way because we have the chance to plant trees again. Right? We have an opportunity right now to do something that's transformative for our church, and there are a lot of things that are unclear, and there are a lot of things that we don't know and how it will work, and there are valid concerns about debt. There are valid concerns about what the next thing will be, whether we can afford it or not, how will we afford it, as Paul said, reassessing how we want to do the staging and all of those things, but we have a chance to plant a tree and plant a number of trees. And the truth is that some of us won't be here to see how the trees grow all the way through. We may not, we don't know, right? We just don't know. But we can still plant that tree. And we don't know whether some pieces of the tree will grow exactly the way that we want it to, and whether we'll be able to afford the other pieces that we want to, or whether that construction back there will turn out exactly the way we want. We just don't know these things. We can't know these things. But we live in a beautiful kingdom where we can take our resources, take our love, and do important things for our church. So I would just like to say, let's plant a tree. And then when we plant this tree, we can look at planting the next tree and the next tree and the next tree after that. And it will always be a gamble. It will always be uncertain. And we will never know exactly how it will work. But we can plant a tree. So I hope you'll vote to plant the tree.
Steve Olson. First of all, I didn't see the email until this morning, and that was quite a bit of a shock to me. I love the plan that we have ahead of us. I think it's great. But it's more than planting a tree. Trees aren't that expensive, but this is very expensive. We don't know, of course, that costs will go down ever again. They might just stay the same. So that's something to remember. But at the same time, if I were building a new house, or if I wanted to, I would not build it now. I would put my money someplace where I could hope it would grow, and then I would build it after I see what the future holds, maybe a year, maybe 2 years. So that's part of where I come from as an older person who's more conservative. I know that I've increased my giving to the church by quite a bit in the last 2 years, especially to the building plan. So I really support it. But I really question whether this is the time to move ahead when it costs so much more. So I'm really struggling with this vote. I'm all in favor of the projects, but I really wonder if this is the best time to do it. This is my honest opinion and my feelings.
Good. Thank you, Steve.
Again, my name is Beth Postma, relatively new member here. Question for the architects, and maybe this is even consulting engineers, so we maybe can't have the answer today. The HVAC is what excites me as faithfulness for creation care and consumption of fuel in the Earth's resources and polluting our God-given planet. But I think it also has a very pragmatic aspect in terms of lowering operational cost month by month by month. And so I'm wondering if there is a rough estimate of percentage or dollars that heating and cooling the building will be reduced by with the new HVAC, in particular if demolition of the 49 section isn't until 1B, how much even completely cutting off the HVAC of that structure if it's no longer in use will result in savings that will perhaps cover debt service.
Yeah. Thanks for that question, Beth. I mean, certainly we haven't had time to process that. Brian, I don't know if you have anything you could add.
Yeah, sure. Just really quickly, there's no question that costs will be reduced in terms of operational costs with the newer equipment. Right now, you're operating multiple heating plants throughout the building that are all old technology. They're all very inefficient. You have a combination of different fuel sources. There's just a lot of things that are causing your operational costs to be driven up currently because of the age of the equipment and the lack of high efficiency equipment here. So the new heating plant that I mentioned that will be going into the building addition, that heating plant will be all high efficiency furnaces. They will be significantly less costly to operate and to maintain than your current equipment. From a lighting standpoint, a lot of your spaces throughout your building right now are lit with relatively inefficient light fixtures, and so new LED light fixtures that have occupancy sensors and things like that allow for when spaces aren't being utilized for the lights to be turned down, you know, if somebody forgets to turn them off. All of those things will have a positive impact on your operational costs. So there's no question that the deferred maintenance things that are being addressed as part of this project, especially in the existing portions of your building, will have a long-term positive impact on your operational costs.
If I could just also make one comment about the timeliness of this, and this is somewhat in response to Steve's comment. This building is costing us money every day. And it's cold in here today, right? You know why it's cold? Because the doors had to be opened to get the smell of smoke out of here. Those of you who live close might have heard the fire department at 3:30 a.m. The fire department was here because there was a fire in the education wing in the lower level of one of the, Jan would know the details, but one of the motors for one of the systems down there caught fire. So there was a smell of smoke throughout all of the west wing and then into here. So again, just to, honestly, I didn't set that fire. I can't speak for Pastor Simon. But maybe God is trying to tell us something.
I'm gonna call the question in just a second, but I wanted to say this before we move forward. Obviously, my name is Ted Horan, and obviously I'm supportive of this project. And I think it is the conservative path forward to vote today on 1A. And it gives us that time to reflect and to reassess and to reimagine what this could potentially be. I appreciate, Dr. Devery, I appreciate your suggestions. You know I'm aligned with that, and I believe that many of us are in those who are in leadership position for sure. And I think, Steve, your comments are absolutely what many of us are thinking today. But I'd also would just remind everybody as you look around, we're wearing masks. We're still dealing with a pandemic of sizable proportions, right? We have half or more of our church attendance online. We have 2 services where people are coming in, that people do attend in person, but most of what's happening is online. This has changed. We are forced to reevaluate what we do on a very consistent basis. And I think now is the time to plan, and now is the time to move forward. Because listen, there are a lot of changes in front of us. And as we come out of this pandemic, and I know we will, our church is going to look different. And I think the plans that we have in place are in some ways, none of us could have imagined what we're experiencing. But if you consider the amount of challenges that exist today for child care, early child care education, and child care in general, we will be positioned very well. So I would like to call the question and move forward.
Yep. Wait for the mic, please. We can't hear.
I have to go back to the 2 million and get your thoughts or the committee's thoughts on that.
No one can hear, sir. No one can hear.
Can you hear me? Oh. I got it? Yep. Can you hear me? Okay. My thoughts are the 2 million. I'm assuming we would be using that. And I guess the repayment on that, I'm not sure what the source is. I assume it's out of our normal annual budget, or is there some other source we're looking at from that? I don't know where that's been plugged into, but supporting the project, I guess I would like to see how you're handling that and what the repayment would be and where it fits in.
The repayments on a $2 million loan with the rates that we've seen over 25 years would be about $10,000 a month for 25 years. That's significant.
That would come out of our normal budget then?
It would, as of now, that's the only source that we would have for that, yes. But again, this phase 1A that we're talking about would not require us to do that.
Right, that would be after you get through
we will certainly,
2 years.
If we get a positive vote today, we will certainly come back with another meeting before we move forward with anything else after phase 1A.
Yeah, I guess my comment would be it's a big amount to consider. Looking for the project, but it's a big amount to consider that we stick in our budget.
Certainly.
So that would be my thought.
Certainly. We've had a call for the question. Larry, I believe that needs a second. There's been a second. I believe that also needs a vote. So calling the question, of course, means that we would then proceed to the vote. So let's just do this by voice first. So all those in favor of calling the question, please say aye. Aye. Those opposed, same sign. Okay, the question's been called. We will vote by paper ballot. This is a very significant vote. I want to make sure that everybody is comfortable voting their conscience. So votes will be private. I've asked members of the church council to act as tellers, but also Larry Walraby has also will also be supervising the counting of the ballots. Yes, it'd be a yes or no. So yes is in favor of the motion as it's in front of you, and no would be not in favor of the motion that's in front of you. Just a word of procedure here. After all the votes have been collected, then we will begin the work. Well, we will adjourn the meeting, and the votes will be counted, and the result of the vote will be announced at the end of the CLC service. So those of you who stay will hear. Those of you who want to go home can tune in online and hear what the announcement is at that point. But we haven't formally adjourned, so let me call on Pastor Simon to close in prayer before we formally adjourn.
The Lord be with you. Let us pray. Gracious God, you put a challenge before us over these many years, and you have promised to be with us in and through everything, and we do indeed thank you for that promise. We thank you for your presence with us, and we would indeed ask that you continue to have your presence felt in this place and into this community and into this world. We love you. We know that you love us, and we wish to be your faithful disciples and help us to find the right path, to be the right people, and indeed to share your message of love and grace with this world. Thank you for the leadership of this congregation right now in these days that they have been meeting and working so hard. And thank you for the membership of this congregation and their enthusiasm to be lights into this world as well. Lord, continue to bless us, we pray, in and through your holy name. Amen. God's peace be with you all, and thank you very much. If you could exit as quickly as possible if you're going, and let the people in, that would be tickety-boo. Thank you very much. Okay. There's a telephone. There was a cell phone left in the bathroom. Was it the men's or the ladies? Oh, a telephone left in the kitchen.